Hi, I'm Kelsey Zeiser with Light Reading, and we're here at MEF 18 in Los Angeles. I'm joined by Nav Chander with Silver Peak. Good to see you, Nav.
Great to see you, Kelsey.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about how Silver Peak is approaching the increasing demand for SD-WAN solutions.
It's been really exciting for the past weeks, months. It seems like we're going, from one exciting piece of news. Excited that we were a leader in the Magic Quadrant, which just came out last week with Gartner. And we're just seeing a lot of interest in SD-WAN, but the adoption is changing too. I think what's happening with enterprises, and just to be clear that we can talk about enterprises, and obviously at this show there's a lot of service providers, and the demand from enterprises is surpassed, I think, a lot of the service providers' expectations. 100% of their RFPs for managed services are asking for or requiring SD-WAN, and I think that's a big change from a year ago. And often, though, the service providers are also facing additional questions about, well, how fast can you turn up that service? And like everything else that we've seen in the history of managed services, the challenge for service providers is meeting the demand. And I think the pent-up demand for SD-WAN is overshot expectations and the capacity for service providers. Last year, it was just another VNF, it was a point solution. We're seeing that service providers are starting to understand there's a difference between devices-centric or a one-point solution and a platform. And that's exactly what we're doing at Silver Peak. We're looking at a unified platform and a business-first kind of model. So sort of top-down rather than, what's that device and what's that going to support an SD-WAN service? What is an SD-WAN service? Is it just one service, or is it a platform to enable a whole bunch of new services? So I think there's a lot more education required in this. At the same time, Silver Peak is really excited because we're seeing across every vertical a tremendous amount of deployments. We have well over 1,000 customers, as you probably know, and it doesn't matter what's retail, manufacturing, healthcare, government, banking. It's kind of
vertical neutral then.
Vertical neutral, yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit more about why Silver Peak's approach is unique? And we talked before about your three-pronged strategy and your work with system integrators globally. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, sure. Well, I think what's unique is that, again, we're a software company, so we're hardware agnostic. So first thing here is we work with a lot of the partners in the universal CPE space, white box, and so that we allow the service providers, they can consume and deliver services either as a virtual function in a cloud, in their cloud, in a telco cloud, or in a public cloud like AWS or Azure. We are in the marketplace of those two public cloud providers. And then we have our own appliances, that can sit on standard x86 or Dell hardware. When it comes to how do we allow customers, or what are the opportunities for enterprises to buy, and that's really changing. So initially Silver Peak focused on enterprises through our value-added reseller, well-established channel globally, and it's been very successful. And we've always been a channel first. 2.5 years ago, we launched our service provider business. So we go to market with managed service providers like the NTT Communications, Masergy, TPX, China Telecom Global, and a whole host of others. And more recently, we've been working with system integrators. So one of them who's actively involved here as both a service provider and integrator is Fujitsu Network Communications was the first, and they offer an SD-WAN as a service, and they also act as an integrator. And then we also work with global SIs like Cognizant, HCL, Tech Mahindra, and those companies are involved in digital transformation, major IT transformations for large and mid-sized companies. And what I think is interesting for us is that channel is also really excited about SD-WAN because they're involved in looking at business outcomes, and they're measured on how much do they help that company with their business outcomes, which really aligns well with where Silver Peak's platform strategy. It's all about the business first, and we've always had that a platform that looks at top down. What does that application need? Like, in other words, the paradigm has shifted where the network adapted. The network now adapts to the application. It used to be the other way around, where the apps had to rely on whatever the network. And being able to do that based on a business intent and a business outcome really fits well with all our channel partners. Our value-added resellers see an opportunity to move up the value chain and offer maybe some light managed service, integration service. Our service provider partners that are here, like NTT Communications and Masergy and others, are really building on a layering approach to offering multiple services. And
that was something that seemed to be touched on the panel that you were on yesterday, was the managed services approach.
Right,
and that seems to be growing in popularity. Would you agree with that? And how is Silver Peak offering those managed tiered services that you mentioned?
But within a managed service, one of the new and interesting options and this is a great opportunity for service providers, is to offer a co-managed offering. And co-managed means you're still responsible for managing the connectivity, the installation, support, and probably more and an SLA, just like you would, but you're allowing the enterprise to have some flexibility in configuring or viewing policies and maybe changing bandwidth, looking at different sites and allowing some control configurability.
So some customization.
Customization, but it allows the service provider to have a closer touch with their customer and really look at almost in a consultative way, how the applications for that particular customer and how much does that customer want to do and view that. And we've seen a lot of interest in that approach.
Adding that visibility and
yeah, we already have that in our platform. So from a platform perspective, we have analytics and visibility, and our orchestration is all very intuitive, and it allows service provider or system integrator to offer that, and even large enterprises who want to do it yourself. And as we all know, a lot of enterprises do want to do it yourself, and at some point, sometimes they decide that they want a partner, or if they're already working with one of the SIs on a large transformation project, SD-WAN becomes an opportunity. Instead of having to do it themselves, they may lead towards one of those partners.
So you talked a bit about managed services and tiered services. What's Silver Peak's approach to tiered services? Can you explain what you mean by that?
Yeah, absolutely, Kelsey. And it's something that we all take for granted is tiered services. I use the staircase analogy. With SD-WAN, you can take the first step and stay there, and it's a service, and it has the value to a service provider as a managed service. But if you take the next step on the tier and you want to offer SD-WAN as a service, or you want to offer WAN acceleration, data reduction as a service, and it can be a pay-as-you-go consumption model, that becomes another tier. And you can add a third tier. Maybe I want to offer that as a router as well. I'm going to, as a service provider, offer several VNFs, routing, WAN acceleration, and all in one, instead of having 3 different VNFs, which is a big challenge for service providers. So that becomes another tier, and then I take another step up that staircase, and I offer analytics as a service. So there's a lot of rich analytics in the Silver Peak platform. We capture all the behavior SaaS applications, and just being able to capture that and offer that as a service is another opportunity. And finally, there's other services that we think that will come in the future, even related to security. We partner with a lot of security vendors, so you could add that as another tier. Service chaining with 8 of the leading security vendors. So service provider can bundle SD-WAN and security in different forms. So that's just a example of how we think we can enable service providers to monetize SD-WAN and move up that staircase and offer any one or all of those to their enterprise customers.
Thanks so much, Nav. It's been a pleasure speaking with you.
Great to speak with you as always, Kelsey.